Should I build a mobile app first or an online app? Which one is better? What do I need to do for my startup? In this True and False episode, we look at the 10 most common questions or myths that people have when it comes to mobile apps versus online apps. Welcome to Mary Poppins of Startups live show. I'm Nelly Makangu from Athena Leaders. As a tech consultant and startup advisor, I will answer live the burning questions that you have on your journey to Series A+. Subscribe and tune in every week for top tips to meet amazing guests and, more importantly, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. In this episode, we are going to look at mobile apps versus online apps. And for those who don't know, the main difference is should I, or if I have to rephrase the question, should I first build an app that runs primarily on a mobile, or should I have the same app available online? So, for example, when you use a banking app, you might go online, people back in the days used to actually go to a bank. You go online to do whatever you want to do. But if you're lounging on the couch and you need to pay your rent, why stand up, go and grab your laptop? You probably have your phone next to you. You use your phone, go on your mobile app, and you do whatever transaction that you want. So that's the difference between an online app and a mobile app for those who might not be sure about what this episode is about. One of the things I really want to do in this episode is to get you to participate, to jump in, and to let us know. So whenever I introduce a question, I will pause for a few seconds for you to put your answer on the chat, right? So you might want to put like Q1 for question one, true or false, TF, whatever you want, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever you really want to put out there. Don't worry if you are watching or listening to this episode as a replay. Do put your comments in. So that is really interesting for us to see what kind of misconceptions or what issues people have. What is it that they've learned that is new, or that's like, wow, never thought about that. So that would be really good for us in terms of producing more content for you and to serve you better. Do remember that if you want me to go into more details on specific aspects, something that I've mentioned at a high level as part of our True and False episodes, then do put it in the chat as well. I always monitor the chat and the comments that we get, and I will go ahead and kind of have a specific episode just for you. If I said something, you're thinking, really? I thought it was the other way for XYZ reason, and you're not really convinced, again, put that in the chat, as that will also help us provide more content to serve you, to serve our community, as this is a very, very specific or important topic even in the startup world. Are you ready to begin? True or false? Yeah. Question number one, true or false? Mobile apps are more popular than online apps. What are you putting in the chat? Yes. The answer is true. According to a 2021 report by App Annie, mobile apps accounted for 90% of consumer time spent on digital media in the US. That's the US alone. So imagine what that metric would be when we start looking at the global consumption. An important thing to remember is that now for most people, I'm not saying that for everybody, for most people, our phone are a bit like an extension to our hands. You go to a restaurant, or you go to a pub, or even in the park. It's not uncommon to see a table where people are meant to be talking to each other, but sometimes they're even quiet and they're all looking at their phone, which I always found pretty strange. Or one or two people are always looking on their phones. If something happens, there's an event, the news, you want to know what the temperature is, we always pull up our phone first. So yes, it is really important to bear that in mind as you're building the strategy for your startup. Question number two, true or false? Having a mobile app is essential for the success of your startup. What do you think? Don't forget to comment there, as that will be even more interesting as a game. The answer here is true, maybe, or I think it's a maybe. And let me at least try and convince you why it's maybe. But yes, let's bear in mind that it could also be true. Based on what we talked about in question one, we know that mobile phones are now an extension to our hands, which means that people will use our apps on their mobile. And if they go on a browser on our mobile, the experience they will get will be different if it wasn't really built for them. I mean, let's say if it was the application was built as an online app only, they go on the browser, the way they will see it on the app on the mobile can be a bit different. Now, according to a survey by Clutch, 42% of small businesses have a mobile app at the moment, and 30% plan to build one in the future. So this is something that people are seriously thinking about. Mobile apps increase customer engagement and retention and improve the overall customer experience. Again, this is true. Now, the question why I say maybe is that there is a cost associated to building a mobile app, depending on the strategy of your app, and also bear in mind that although it's very quick for people to download an app, the number of time and how often they use it is now changing. Some people might download a lot of apps, but they only use 5 or 6 regularly or every day. So yes, I think having a mobile app is essential for your startup. But again, as we go through the Q&A and this true and false Q&A, you will discover what is very important when you think about should I or should I not build a mobile app. Question number 3, true or false? Developing a mobile app is more expensive than developing an online app. What do you think? Do put your answer in the comments so that we can all see what you're actually thinking about. The answer is true. Mobile app development is definitely more expensive than developing an online app. And I'm sure some people are already thinking about it. Yes, there are tools these days that are simplifying building a mobile app, especially when we start talking about no-code platforms. If anyone wants me to go into details, especially when you're looking at no-code and other ways of simplifying the mobile app development, do put that question in the comments and we will have an episode for you. The reason why I say that mobile app development is more expensive than just online development is because if you're going to build a mobile app, especially if you want it to be native, for that, when we talk about native, is only for that specific model of mobile you have, or what we call operating system. So whether you are talking iOS, which is Apple phones, and Android, which is pretty much everybody else, unless you are Microsoft phone or the different platforms. So I'm not going to talk about all of them, just because you might get too technical, and I'm trying to avoid jargons as much as possible. We all know that the two biggest brands when we start talking about platforms for mobiles are iOS and Android, right? So if you want to develop an app for an Apple, you have developers. There's a lot of developers that specializes only on that, and other developers specializes only on Android. If you want to ask me why, to go into more details, I would love to in another episode to make sure that this doesn't become like a 2 hours talk. To put it simply, when we look at iOS, again, it's built by as an Apple, and Android, which again, Android, the platform was built by Google, but a lot of people use the Android technology. The difference is, think about different languages, right? So one could be German and the other one could be French. So there might be some similarities in how you build the software, but to speak to them, to understand the best way of phrasing different things, the best way of tweaking for the performance, for the experience that people feel, will be completely different. So that's the reason why you have people that might specialize on one rather than the others. Some developers could go across, but it's more common to have people that specialize on one versus the other. So that will add in. We need to think about that when it's come to recruiting, based on the language as well. It affects how much it will cost for development. It could affect that based on timing and so many things. So when we're looking at a mobile app in general, it will definitely be more expensive, because when we look at web apps or online apps, it's a little bit more simpler. You can there's way you can make it easy, especially when we start building the interface, the front end and the back end, which is the thing that you don't see but makes everything work. There's a way we can simplify that, and you can find a lot of people who are a bit more generalist that can really help the development of the web app. I am not saying that it's necessarily cheap or easy to build an online or web app, but when you compare the two, looking at building a mobile app, especially one that performs really well for the specific device, which we call native app, then yes, that mobile app is more expensive. Question number 4, true or false? Online apps are easier to develop than mobile apps. Now, I would say false. I don't know what you put on the chat. If you haven't, please do put your comments there. Yes, it's true. As I've mentioned in the other section, another the question I've answered, it's a bit cheaper to develop mobile apps, but it doesn't mean that they're less complex or less difficult to build, right? You still need to think about how you are building your platform. Why it needs to work in this way, and which platform needs to be supported. This is when I bring the topic of browsers, and I hope you all understand what a browser is. So think about it this way. Sometimes you use an app and they will tell you, oh, we only work better on Google Chrome. Sometimes you use an online app and you can use Google Chrome, Firefox, Edge. I was going to say Internet Explorer. I'm showing my age there. Edge, and so many other browsers out there. And the difference is this. Similarly to what we said about Android developers and iOS or Apple phones developers, these are like two different languages that some people speak only one language, some people speak the two languages, but it's more often to find people speaking one language. The browsers work the same, although the underlying of the functionality of how the online app or the web app will work is the same, but the way you want to use them for Google Chrome and the way you need to speak to the language that Google Chrome understands could be a bit different than the way you speak to the language that Firefox understands, could be a bit different than the way that Edge understands. So when you are building your strategy, especially at the beginning, this is something to bear in mind. Do I want to build an online or a web app that works really well on all of the browsers, or do I first go on one? We focused on making it really, really good for that. We put all our energy and investments on, let's say, Chrome, which is the browser now that's becoming more popular, which is more popular. And then you can say, okay, we want to be able to use Safari, for example, to run really well on Safari, because a lot of people who use Apple devices might use Safari as well. And then you might think, okay, should we go for Edge or other browsers? So again, it's all part of the strategy that you would like to use. Question number 5, true or false? You can easily convert an online app to a mobile app, right? What do you think? The answer is false. And again, it also depends on how you built it. Some people believe that now that we've built our online app, it will be really easy to turn into a mobile app. No. So if you want to understand why, go back to question, I think it was question 3 or 2, when I explained a lot about how mobile apps work, native apps versus non-native apps. Sometimes when you build an online app, yes, and of course, when I talk about mobile app, I'm not talking about going to the browser to see the online app. I'm talking about proper mobile app. Sometimes when you build an online app, you can use, again, as I said before, things like Flutter. That Flutter is a platform or a tool that allows you to create an app so that you can see it on different things, like a mobile, iOS, Android, online. Again, it depends on what you want to do and how you want to build it, but most of the time it's not that straightforward. Sometimes a part of the application, maybe the part that does the thinking, that may be based on the server or things like that, you might not have to move it a lot, but the part that interacts or talks to the actual device is the one that could cause you some problems. So if you go back to what I mentioned about understanding different languages, even browser on their own understand different languages. So mobile apps, iOS speak their own language, Google their own language, and the other one, Android their own language, and the other ones as well. So yes, that's why it's important to know, again, from the very beginning, bear in mind what is the right strategy. Of course, if you are a startup, especially at the very beginning, MVP and experimenting, do find a tool, depending on what you're building, do find a tool that allows you to hit more platforms. bear in mind that doing that could affect performance on certain platforms. Is that the right strategy? Is that the right hit to go from the beginning? It's a bit like a technical debt. That's fine. If you go back to the episode I did on technical debt, you realize that technical debt is not necessarily wrong. It's something that you can use to keep going. But as you grow, you need to think about, when we land future round of investments or we have more revenue through customers, should we continue with this, or is there any part of rebuilding that needs to go so that the mobile apps perform as well as they can for the platform that you are targeting? And in fact, I don't know if you've noticed that you might fall in love with an app, and you or maybe do a research on the 10 best recipe app, because that is something I actually did a while back. I wanted to get really good app to store my recipes. And there were some apps that were amazing, but they only ran on Apple. And I thought, oh gosh, it's the why, there's a reason for that. Maybe they decided to only focus on one platform for cost and not the other ones. And the same goes for online. Maybe you might want to go for online. So for example, another example, which I think that's will be quite good actually, is a story, is ClickUp. I use ClickUp a lot for, well, it pretty much runs my life, which is a big endorsement to ClickUp. And no, I don't do any affiliate marketing on them whatsoever. But I love ClickUp. And in fact, ClickUp has been built as an online app, and it hasn't been built as a mobile app, right? They do have a mobile version, but honestly, when I use the mobile version, I get more frustrated. I just wait for when I have my laptop and it works. They say you can download ClickUp on your desktop, but when you do and you open it, it really feels like it's something that was done online. So for something as basic as, if there's no internet, the desktop app or the mobile app doesn't work, right? Well, if I have a desktop app, the expectation of most people is that I can use it offline. The fact that a desktop app doesn't work offline, to me, says that the app was developed as an online app and they've tweaked it a bit to make it available when you install it. But the way it's built inside is probably just calling all of the functions for a more of an online app and browser, so that they have to download more data and things like that. So, well, when I look into that, and I always wonder, is that a good or bad strategy? It's difficult to say. But personally, as a user, I would have preferred if they didn't even bother with a desktop app, because the way it works is very frustrating, and I just completely ignore it. Even if people who know me knows that I prefer my desktop applications, which are now dying because everything is going online. But this is a case where, when you look at the strategy, it would have been easier for them to just stick with online app until they do have the team, budget, whatever it is, vision to go on the desktop. Another interesting story is, I think it was Microsoft back in the days, when they built Microsoft Office. I'm talking years and years and years ago, where Apple just came out, and a lot of people were going to Apple. So what they did, how do we adapt something like, let's say, spreadsheet Excel to work on Apple? And the way they've done it, they try to go for this neutral thing of, you can run on either platform. Again, it goes back to pretty much everything I've been talking about, question 1 to 5, building an application that you can use on many different platforms, right? Although it wasn't mobile back in the time, it was mostly desktop app anyway, but they thought we could do the same thing everywhere. And they realized that although the features were available, because they didn't think about the language that was spoken by Apple, which is the iOS, the language that was spoken, the application wasn't working really well. There was a lot of issues and bugs. What they eventually decided to do is take a step back, kind of rip it apart, and really do it, redo it, but in a way that really focuses on, how do I speak the language that is spoken by iOS and benefit from that? And in fact, something that was quite smart was that they split up the teams that were doing the development, so that each team that working on different browser, although yes, there's information that they different platform, there's information that they shared, they also wanted to think differently, because Apple customers might have a different workflow based on the way they use their Apple devices, which is very different than the way that other people will use Microsoft devices at the time, right? Similarly, the way someone might do certain things on Apple, or even installing updates and things like that, is different than the way people will do it on Android. So knowing that, can also help you improve the application and how you are building and launching the application, which is why I always go back to what is a strategy. You might not be able to fully implement it at the beginning. It could be something that you do in the future. Having this discussion with your technical team, whether they are outsourced or as part of the in-house, it's something to just bear in mind. Put it somewhere there. You understand how to build the foundation, and you can always change and decide where to go in the future. How is it going so far? I hope that you are enjoying this true and false section, and more importantly, learning a bit more about mobile app versus online app. And I really hope that this is helping you thinking about whether, if you're at the beginning, you're thinking about which one to start with, or you've already starting with one and you're starting feeling some of the pains that I've discussed. That will help you to create a better strategy for the future. Do remember that we run a one-to-one free tech and product mentoring session every month. So if you want to talk about this in more detail, jump on one of those. I'd be more than happy to look at your specific case. For everybody else, I'm here, always ready to serve you. Do put your question in the comments. If we do not respond to it throughout this live, we will do an episode that's focused on some of these topics, some of these questions, some of your questions, and we can continue to serve you. But do give us some thumbs up, thumbs down for true and false in the comments, whether you want to write the question and write the words true or false to answer the question. That's good. And again, it keeps everybody engaged, and also good for other people who might have got it wrong to know that they're probably not the only one. Question number 6, true or false? You have to release a mobile app at the same time as an online app. That is false. Again, it depends on investment, your strategy, your product. What is important to you? What is important to your customer? What is the workflow that you want to go, right? Sometimes it's better to have just an online app for whatever product you have. For example, if you are looking at building something that will be used mostly for businesses, right? So we're talking about recruitment platforms, accounting systems. Yes, there are some aspects of that can be used as a mobile and being used efficiently. But overall, when you think about how your main user will use it, especially when you're looking at the business side of things, they will be at work on their laptops. So it makes sense to first release an online version of your app. And as I've mentioned throughout the episode, if you want to have a mobile version, that's up to you. But in this particular scenario, it makes sense to have an online one. Now, look at another example. My favorite one is Starling Bank. This is an app that I've watched grow in a way, and quite exciting. Starling Bank is one of the challenger banks that wanted, as part of there was more, not just Starling, but they wanted to completely change the way the banking world works and make it more accessible and easier for people, rather than always going to the bank or always going online. How can you make transaction very quickly, right? That was their premise. And of course, how can you also make it more privately, and you can move with your bank pretty much on your phone. So what the Starling Bank did when they first launched, even creating your bank account you could only be done on your phone. So you need your phone, you scan your documents, send it to them for verification of your passport. You don't speak to a single human being unless you want to, or you have issues, then contact call the customer service. But until then, everything was done through the phone, which was super exciting for me. The idea of opening a bank account in less than 5 minutes was great compared to how long it took when I tried to open in one of the large, banks with years of history, which is great, good reputation and all of that. But I just felt like you need to move with the times, right? So now back to Starling Bank. One of the things that was quite fascinating for me to watch it, especially from when they first started, was how, as they were growing as a startup, getting more recognition, getting more money, winning more awards, they're starting adding more features, first in the app, but eventually they built an online app, right? So for example, I now do all my transactions. Most of them I do it to the phone. When I want, even for myself, or so I have a business account, whatever I do, I just do it on my phone. But when it's time to do, let's say, my VAT returns and I want to download bank statements, before I had to download them on my phone because I could only access Starling Bank on my phone. But now it's much easier for me to just log in on the online app and then download it there. So you do not have to release mobile app and at the same time as you do an online app, or vice versa. It depends on what you want to do, because both strategy works. Don't be scared about all the statistics. One will work better than the other. At the end of the day, it's really, I believe the technology is only a tool to solve your problem. It's about how to do it efficiently, understanding your users, and also telling a compelling story to attract people. Question 7, true or false? Mobile apps are better for customer engagements than online apps. And again, do put your thoughts. I'm really interested to see what you'll say on that. Put your thoughts, like true or false, in the comments. And if you want to expand a bit more in your reasoning, go for it. I believe it's true. In a way, mobile apps give you a lot more as an app, right? It gives you a lot more information that you might not get in a way from an online app. You know that it's on someone's phone. It's going to be more personalized, more convenient for your own for the experience. You can catch their attention quickly with push notifications, especially if it's done a smart way and not just notifying for the sake of it, which turn into spamming. You have access to location-based features, which is something that you can use to tailor your app depending on what you're building. And they can also access the app even when they're offline, they're not at home. So if you have a mobile app and someone wants to do something, they can just do it straight away. Whereas an online app, of course, they can use their phone, but then it's not the same experience. There's a lot of steps from them to get the phone, open a browser, go to the page and look into it, compared to just, boom, opening the app, and it makes them stay on the app, make them use the app more. The caveat for that, again, goes back to why do you have the app, what features do you have, and what feature gets people to come back to it. Some people believe that if you have a mobile app, everybody will use it. It's just like a product. You launch, open the door. If you haven't prepared customers for it, nobody will come running, right? If you have a mobile app, even if you have customers on it, if you haven't thought about what kind of features can I use to keep them engaged, whether we're talking about gamifications or things that they need to do every day or every week, something useful for them to use, yes, they will download the app, enjoy it for a few weeks, but then what happens next? So this is why it's also important that if you're going to build a mobile app, do think about how are you going to capture all the metrics to start seeing the engagements, and don't just fall in love with the number of downloads that you had. Question number 8, true or false? Online apps are better for SEO than mobile apps. That is something that not a lot of people think about or even talk about when we sit together with teams, or when I look online, when people talk about apps, we think a lot about let's start using it, but SEO is also important. So what do you think, right? True or false? Online apps are better for SEO than mobile apps? Put it in the chat. Definitely want to know your answer. I would say true. Online apps are better for SEO than mobile apps. So the way you will have, obviously, when you have an online app, you can optimize that for search engines to find you, right? You can use keywords, you can use link building, and there's many things that you can do. At the end of the day, you are driving the traffic to your domain, and you can also you can be discovered in other ways as well, because you have other blogs and other information. But having the apps on your website, yes, you can find a way in marketing. Their marketing team can help with that, your engineer can help with that, but they can find a way to optimize how they build the platform, how they make it available at every single page, so that we're not just there to serve in terms of customers and experience, but the SEO will help you be discovered in the big internet, in the big world wide web. Mobile apps, on the other hand, are not that easily discoverable. They do not appear in any search results. So it doesn't really benefit you in a way. I'm not saying that it means that it's not important, but if it's something that you worried about, do bear in mind that search engine cannot crawl or index content or find information on the webs that are within a mobile apps. They can do that to some extent to the online apps. It depends on how it's been built and optimized for SEO. So if SEO is a concern for you, you know that if you have online apps, think about how can I optimize it for SEO. So work with your team on that. So that's kind of like getting free traffic over time. If you have a mobile app, of course, you have SEO is kind of game over for you. But then you think about what other SEO strategy am I going to have to attract people to find my mobile app anyway, right? Different ways of thinking. Question number 9, true or false? Mobile apps are more secure than online apps. That is one of my favorite one when I was getting this show already. Question number 9, mobile apps are more secure than online apps. True or false? Do put in the chat. What do you think? Well, the answer is false. You can't just say that because you have a mobile app that is necessarily going to be more secure than an online app. Well, in a way, you can say yes, to access the app, there's different layers of security that you can use, biometrics features that can use to improve security, scan your finger, do whatever with your eyes and your face. Great. But that's only one layer of security. In fact, it really depends on how you build your mobile app, which again, remember that the more security feature you have, the more expensive, the more cost you might add to your app, but you kind of need that to make sure that your app is as secure as possible. It goes back to technical depth and the strategy that you want for development. So you can build a mobile app and think about, encryption, security for data. Are they storing it on the phone? And how can you make sure that if it's stored on the phone, it can't just be accessed by anybody? But there are other security risks that people think a lot about when we're talking about desktop, like virus, malware. It's possible to have those on the phone as well. It's just that it's not a concept that is talked as much when we're talking about this new era of mobile phones compared to how often we used to talk about malware and viruses in the era of desktop. The other thing to bear in mind, again, hacking, which can happen absolutely online or on mobile, can also happen on mobile. So if you're not thinking about that, start thinking about it. Online apps, you can be secure using firewalls, antivirus software, and other things. Again, some of those can, to some extent, being brought forward by mobile apps. But again, think a little bit about how can you make sure, especially the more sensitive information that you record from people, make sure that you have it on lock the way you are going to protect it. Because yes, there are always people snooping around, even if we don't see them. Question number 10. The more feature I have on my mobile app, the more people will use it. True or false? What do you think? This is such an exciting question, and I really, really want to see what to get your thoughts on that, because I think this is one of the things, I've seen many people, I've done many mentoring sessions, I've sat with them, they're like, oh my God, I want this and that on my mobile app, make it, put some kind of gamification in there really early on and make sure that I've got all of those bells and whistles to attract people. Now, before I give you the answer, very quick reminder. I run one-to-one free tech product mentoring sessions. I partner with amazing other people within the technical world that are so as passionate about startups as I am. We do it once a month. And if you're interested, send me a message or find the link, I think, in the description of this show or on my website. Join, and then I pair you up with a mentor. It could be me, it could be someone else. It depends on what question you have. And we'd love to go deep into this topic, answer it live for you, answer it on the call with you one-to-one, so that you can get the full value of that. For others, if there is something I've said, made you think and thinking, I would love to expand on that, don't particularly want to come to the one-to-one, but I would want you to speak about that a little bit more. Remember that the Mary Poppins of Startups and the podcast is here to serve you in particular, not just the world, you. So if you are thinking about this, do drop us a line and I will either answer you directly or even turn that into a live, as you'll benefit the community as a whole. Are you ready to find the answer to the last question? Here we go. Question number 10. The more feature I have on my mobile app, the more people will use it. True or false? The answer is false. The same rule applies to every type of software development that you are going to do. Don't obsess over features or bells and whistles. First, think about the key questions. What problems are you solving? How is this feature going to be able to solve that problem? How is this improving the workflow or the look and feel? How is it helping the user? If you can answer that, then that will help you to build what you need. I've seen some apps that do one thing. They're very focused on just maybe one or two features, not a lot of buttons. It's very, very simple to use, but they are brilliant because the one or two or three or four things that they do them really well, and they really, really serve the community, they serve their users. So you might think that to improve the engagement of your app, how about we plug so many things in there? You might think about, I talked about gamification quite a lot. You might think about adding more features for that. But if you haven't thought about how is this gamification going to help based on the context of my app, you could actually be adding more distractions. And if you see a feature that works well on another app that you love, doesn't mean that it will work well for you as well. So before you get excited and go, I'm building a mobile app, I want it to be brilliant, I want people to be engaged. For them to be engaged, I need to track so many things into the app. That might actually be money that you just dropped down the drain, and it might not help you. I hope you've enjoyed this new section on true or false on mobile development versus online development or online apps. This is a question that a lot of people worry about, even if they're already halfway through the journey of building one or another, or building both at the same time, and they're starting feeling some pains. Yes, it's never too late to relook at your strategy based on what we've talked about. If you need any help with that, give me a shout. More than happy to speak to you, and also have the one-to-one free tech product mentoring sessions. But there's always something that you can do about this. In the meantime, let's design a happy and productive workplace playground together.